In this lesson, we're going to talk about a few properties that you need to know for formatting text. We're going to cover text align, text indent, text decoration, which is used for adding underlines or line throughs, text transform, which is used for converting letters to uppercase or lowercase, white space for controlling wrapping, column properties for creating multi-column text, and direction, which is used in right-to-left languages like Persian, Hebrew, and Arabic. Of course, there are many other properties. We're not going to cover them all. It's really pointless. The ones that I have listed here are the ones that I believe every front-end developer must know. So the first property we're going to talk about is text align, which is used for controlling the horizontal alignment of our text. The default value is left, but we can set it to right or center. And with that, our text becomes center aligned. We also have justify, but I highly encourage you not to use this because it makes your text a little bit hard to read. We end up with all these patches of white space between words. So for the web, the best alignment is left, but sometimes you may want to use center alignment. So that is text align. The next property is text indent, which we use for adding indentation on the first line of our text. For example, if I set this to 1 rem, look, we have 1 rem of space on the first line. Pretty useful. Now, quite often, we don't want to indent the first line after a heading. We want to indent the first line of subsequent paragraphs. So how can we do that? Well, earlier we talked about relational selectors. So if we type plus P here, that would select a paragraph that comes right after another paragraph. So back to our page, now the first line is not indented. But if you add a second paragraph, the first line of that paragraph will be indented. Let's verify that. So back to our markup, I'm going to select this paragraph and duplicate it. Now take a look. So the first line of the first paragraph is not indented, but the first line of subsequent paragraphs are indented. So that is the text indent property. Now, the next property we're going to talk about is text decoration. We can set it to underline. Now let me remove the second P and apply this property to all our paragraphs. So take a look. We get underline. Another possible value is line through. This is useful for showing prices that are no longer valid. Now, the next property is text transform. With this, we can convert the text to lowercase or uppercase or capitalize. This will capitalize the first letter of every word. So it's pretty useful for headings. So that's text transform. Another useful property is white space, which is used for controlling wrapping. So if we set this to no wrap, look, we don't have wrapping here. We only have 1 line of text and horizontal scrolling. Of course, we don't want horizontal scrolling. So quite often, when we want to disable wrapping, we want to enforce a limit on the paragraph and then truncate the text. Let me show you how to do that. So we have enforced a width here. Let's add a border so we can see things clearly. Take a look. So this is the width of our text. Anything beyond that is outside of our container. So here we have overflowing. But as you know, by default, the value of overflow property is visible. That's why we see overflown content. But if it changes to hidden, now the text is clipped. But wouldn't that be nicer if we had ... at the end? Well, we can achieve that using the text overflow property. We can set this to ellipses. And with that, we can easily truncate text. So let me quickly recap. To truncate text, there are 4 properties we need to set. The first one is a fixed width. The second one is white space. We should set this to no wrap, so we'll end up with only 1 line of text. Next, we set overflow to hidden, so any extra content will become hidden. And finally, we set text overflow to ellipses, so we get ... at the end of the first line. Now, there is a new property in CSS that allows us to truncate text by the number of lines. That is called line clamp. For example, if we set this to 3, we can truncate the text after the 3rd line. But this property is still experimental, so I'm not going to cover it in this lesson. You can always read about it on your own. So this is all about truncating text. Now in CSS3, we have properties for creating multi-column text really easily. So let me delete all these properties that are used for truncating text. We don't need any of these. Instead, we're going to use column count. We set it to 2. Now we get 2 columns of text. We achieve this with only a single line of code. Super easy. Now we can also control the gap between these columns. So we have another property called column gap. We can set it to 1 rem or 2 rem, whatever. Now we have 1 rem of space, but if we set it to 2, the space is more pronounced. We can also add a line between these columns. So we set column rule to, let's say, 3 pixels dotted 999. That's a really light gray color. So take a look. I think that's pretty nice. So this is all about multi-column text. Now, the last property we're going to talk about is direction, which is used in right to left languages. The default value is LTR, which is short for left to right, but we can set it to RTL, and now our paragraph becomes right to left. Now, quite often, we want to apply this at the top, for example, at the body level. So now the entire page is right to left. So my Iranian, Arab, and Jewish friends are going to love this. So this is all about formatting text.